Today on Real Estate with Stephen Smith, we're going to cover the subject of HOAs and talk about the pros and cons and some things to consider when you're looking at buying your next home. Hi, welcome to Real Estate with Stephen Smith. Today we're going to talk about HOAs. Some people wonder, so what is an HOA? It is a homeowners association. And homeowners associations are something that essentially are in place to ensure that the community is kept well maintained and that everything functions smoothly. Going back as far as the 1970s, the HOAs were something that was kind of a new thing. Not too many developments had them. Moving forward to today, most new developments in the Bay Area have homeowners associations. And there's good reasons for them, but there also can be a little bit problematic depending on your point of view. One of the reasons you do have them, for example, if you have a pool in your development, let's say it's a community pool, typically you'll see these in condo or townhome complexes. Somebody has to maintain the pool, and that usually falls to the homeowners association. Or if there is some kind of maintenance for common areas, that's typically the responsibility of the homeowners association as well. So it's kind of a good thing, but it also can be a little bit problematic, as sometimes it can be a little bit restrictive. So the question really comes down to, is a homeowner association right for you? If it is, then a newer development is probably going to be okay, since most of them are going to have some homeowner associations. Single family homes, for example, often have them, but typically they're relatively minor and cover mainly common areas or a clubhouse or a pool, and that's about it. If you have a condo complex, then they may be a little bit more encompassing in terms of what they cover. A lot of people wonder, how much homeowners fees can be for a homeowners association. And while they can vary pretty widely, typically they're higher in a condo complex or townhome complex, as there's many, many common areas and pools and all kinds of things that need to be taken care of. Whereas a single family home complex will be usually a lot less. Homeowners association fees can range from $200 up to over $400 a month, depending on the complex, how long it's been, and how much maintenance is required. For single family homes, it's usually a little bit less because there's not nearly as many common areas. However, there are some restrictions as well, particularly things like how long you can have your garbage cans out, or cars, how long they can park in a given area, or even disabled cars. And the whole reason for that is to prevent blight within a neighborhood. So those are the good things about it. However, if you want to make changes, particularly to certain landscaping, and this is mainly restricted to condos and townhomes, you can't really do that very much, so they're very restrictive. Also, things like paint colors and where you can have an RV or whatever can be very restrictive as well. So it's not always for everybody. So if you don't like a homeowners association, then you probably want to target older neighborhoods. I'm talking single family homes. If you don't mind them so much, then a newer complex is probably going to be a little bit better for you. So what makes up a homeowners association? Well, usually it's a management company that's hired to do that kind of work specifically, and it's often put in place by the developer of whatever complex it might be. However, the board of directors for the HOA is made up of the residents, and they're elected once per year, and then they manage things. They manage the treasury, they enforce the rules, whatever it happens to be that's going on. Now, there is differences. Some people get HOAs mixed up with CC&Rs. CC&R is a little different. Those were common, especially years ago. And again, those were also put in place by the developers. But they're, generally speaking, had very little enforcement, particularly as years go by. So CC&Rs did not have really the same kind of teeth in it that a HOA has, where HOAs, since you're paying someone to actually manage all the affairs, and there's people that are in place in terms of the board of directors that are organizing, they're the ones that are essentially managing it. So they has a lot more enforcement. So where CC&Rs were typical back in the old days, HOAs are more common today. Okay, so some people wonder, well, what if I violate the HOA rules or I don't pay my HOA fees? What are the consequences? Well, the consequences could actually be fairly severe. In the worst case, they can foreclose on your property. So it's something that when you're getting a loan for your home, the loan companies will take into consideration not just your monthly payment, but also the HOA fee. And as I mentioned earlier, HOA fees generally run in an average between $200 and $400 a month. However, they could be lower, but for some luxury communities, HOA fees can run well above that, up to $600-700 in some cases, although that is a little more rare. So it is something that you need to take into consideration for both, not just what it is you want out of your home, but also how that's going to impact your budget. So let's go over some of the pros and cons of having a homeowners association. Well, for one, they maintain the place, and that's really a good thing because it definitely takes care of all the stuff that you don't have to do. That works for some people who really don't want to have to deal with lawnmowers or irrigation or minor repairs, because the HOAs will take care of most of that kind of stuff. And then they also help keep things very uniform. And uniformity is really good, particularly as we mentioned before. Yes, it does restrict certain things, particularly for single-family homes, in picking things like paint colors and things of that nature. On the other hand, that can be problematic if you have a neighbor who has a different sense of style than others and might want to paint their house a super dark purple or some really color that doesn't fit well into the neighborhood. Or the other thing HOAs can do is also kind of resolve problems on your behalf. So for example, let's say your neighbor decides they want to turn their garage or they want to turn their front yard into an auto repair shop. Well, that may not be what the rest of the neighbors want, causes a lot of extra traffic and noise and blight and other things. And if you have a problem with that, then the HOA will help to mediate those kinds of problems on your behalf. And last, but probably most importantly, the HOAs can really help to maintain the value of your home by keeping things nice, essentially, by taking care of stuff and repairing them when they're wrong. And although you may get occasional assessments if after 20 or 40 years the roof needs to be replaced or periodic painting needs to be done in the case of things like townhomes, then those are good things. So even if you have a single family home, by maintaining that uniformity and keeping a really high standard within the community, that helps to retain and actually in many cases increase the value of your home. So ultimately, these are all really good things about HOAs. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the not so great things about HOAs. Well, one, there's those HOA fees every month, which seem to be like pouring money into a black hole. You never see any of the really results from it. So for some folks, that is an absolute deal breaker. The other thing is they tend to be restrictive. For example, let's talk about single family homes. It may be one thing to put in an in-ground pool, but they may restrict things like an above ground pool. And this is just an example. We talked about things like landscaping and paint colors. There's usually guidelines for that kind of stuff. How many cars can be parked along the street? There's a lot of things. It's the real idea is that they're really not meant to meddle into the affairs, although it might seem like that they're meddling into the affairs of the homeowners. But the idea is just, again, to keep that level of uniformity and maintain a really nice atmosphere. Now, for some people who want the freedom to be able to do whatever they want, then probably moving into a community with an HOA is not for you. So if you like to be able to do things in your driveway, if you want to be able to change architecture, or if you want to have different color schemes or whatever, If those things run afoul of a homeowners association, then you probably don't want to do that. But if you don't have those issues and you like having somebody else maintain the property, especially if there's a lot of common areas, then an HOA might be for you. And actually, for single family homes, HOAs can be relatively reasonable. In many cases, they can be under $200 a month. I've seen them as little as $50 a quarter, depending on the development. So, that could be a good thing also. In any event, that's kind of a quick wrap up around HOAs. If you have any questions about HOAs, or you're interested in property in the southern Silicon Valley or down in the southern Santa Clara County, such as Morgan Hill, Gilroy, or San Martin, then please reach out to me. You can reach me at 408-706-0561 or email me at stevensmith@intero.com. That's STEPHENS @intero.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.